Grand Marshal Thexvor had commanded the Galactic Defense Fleet for 40 years. He'd studied at the most prestigious military academies in 3-star systems, spent decades analyzing historical battles, and held advanced degrees in tactical theory, strategic planning, and military psychology. War, to his species and most others in the galaxy, was the most serious of all endeavors, a complex dance of logistics, mathematics, and careful calculation. Which is why he was currently staring at a human colonel with a mixture of confusion and horror. "It's called chess," Colonel Sarah Martinez said cheerfully, setting up a small board with black and white squares between them. "My daughter got me back into it recently. Great for keeping your tactical thinking sharp." The officers' lounge aboard the Coalition flagship Unity's Promise had gone quiet. 6 other high-ranking officers from various species watched the exchange with growing unease. "You're telling me," Thexvor said slowly, his translator struggling to convey his disbelief, "that humans have gamified warfare?" "Well, chess has been around for like 1,500 years. It's based on medieval warfare, but the principles are timeless." Sarah began explaining the pieces: pawns, knights, bishops, rooks, the queen, and king. Admiral Zilkar, a Netherian known for her brilliant defensive strategies, leaned forward. "And human children play this?" "Oh yeah, I learned when I was 6. Some kids play competitively. There are tournaments, rankings, the whole deal." 6, Zilkar repeated faintly. "Your species begins military strategic training at age 6. I mean, we don't call it that. It's just a game. Fun, you know." Thexvor's tentacles coiled with anxiety, a stress response his species couldn't control. "Colonel Martinez, explain to me why humans would take the most serious discipline known to civilized species and transform it into children's entertainment." Sarah paused, genuinely considering the question. "I guess, because understanding strategy shouldn't be limited to professional soldiers. Chess teaches pattern recognition, forward planning, sacrifice for long-term gain, tactical positioning. Those are useful skills for anyone." "Useful skills," Commander Kivrel muttered, his crystalline structure pulsing with agitation. "She speaks of warfare principles as if discussing basic mathematics." "I mean, it kind of is math," Sarah said. "Calculating possibilities, probability, risk assessment." "Stop," Thexvor held up a primary appendage. "Just show us how this game works." 20 minutes later, Sarah had checkmated Thexvor using what she called a scholar's mate, a 4-move victory that left the Grand Marshal staring at the board in stunned silence. "That's impossible," he said finally. "I've commanded fleets for decades. I have 3 doctoral degrees in strategic theory." "Yeah, but you were thinking too much about the big picture," Sarah explained. "Sometimes the simplest attacks work because people expect complexity. It's a beginner's trap, honestly. You'll get better with practice." "A beginner's trap," Thexvor repeated, his voice hollow. "I fell for a beginner's trap." Admiral Zilkar picked up the queen piece, examining it. "This unit has the most mobility on the board. And you said human players often sacrifice it?" "Sure, if it leads to checkmate or a winning position. It's about the objective, not preserving pieces." The officers exchanged glances. In traditional galactic warfare, commanders who lost valuable assets were court-martialed. The concept of deliberately sacrificing powerful units was almost heretical. "Let me understand this correctly," Thexvor said. "Humans train their children in strategic thinking through competitive games. They learn to calculate multiple moves ahead, to sacrifice valuable resources for strategic advantage, to identify patterns and exploit weaknesses. And to lose gracefully," Sarah added. "That's important too. You can't learn if you can't accept failure." "Accept failure," Kivrel whispered. "They train their young to accept strategic failure as a learning tool." Sarah pulled out her personal data pad. "Oh, chess isn't the only one. There's Go," that's even older, from Earth's Asian region. It's about territorial control and strategic encirclement. Then there's risk for large-scale campaign strategy, stratego for unit deployment and reconnaissance, diplomacy for alliance building and negotiation. There are more? Zilkar's voice cracked. I mean, hundreds. Maybe thousands? Gaming is a huge industry. First-person shooters teach quick decision-making under pressure. Real-time strategy games teach resource management and multitasking. Even puzzle games help with problem-solving and spatial reasoning. Thexvor accessed his command datapad with trembling appendages, pulling up human military performance statistics. He'd seen them before but never made the connection. Human officers consistently outperformed their peers in tactical simulations, often using unconventional strategies that seemed to come from nowhere. They weren't coming from nowhere. They were coming from childhood spent playing war games. Colonel, Thexvor said carefully, when you were a child playing these games, did you realize you were receiving military training? Sarah laughed. No, I was just having fun beating my brother. The strategic thinking was just a side effect, I guess. A side effect, Kivrel said. Human civilization accidentally militarized its entire population through entertainment. I wouldn't say militarized. These games is learning warfare principles. Not through formal education, but through play. Through competition. Through fun. The horror in his voice was unmistakable. Sarah looked around at the disturbed faces of the alien officers. Guys, it's really not that deep. They're just games. That's what terrifies me most, Thexvor said quietly. You don't even realize what you've done. While the rest of the galaxy treats warfare as a specialized field requiring decades of study, humans have been casually training strategic thinkers for over a millennium. As recreation. He looked at the chessboard, then at Sarah. Colonel, I would like to learn this game. All of these games. Really? That's awesome. We can start with. Not for enjoyment, Thexvor said grimly. For survival. If humans can reach this level of strategic thinking through play, then the rest of us need to understand how. Before we face an enemy who doesn't. Sarah grinned. Chess Club meets Thursdays at 1900 hours. Bring snacks. As she left, the alien officers sat in silence, staring at the innocent-looking board with its carved pieces. We've been outthought by a species that treats warfare like a hobby, Zilkar finally said. Not outthought, Thexvor corrected, moving a pawn experimentally. Outcultured. They've embedded strategic thinking into their society so deeply they don't even notice it anymore. He looked at his fellow officers. Start learning human games. All of them. That's an order. Because Thexvor had realized something terrifying. If this was what humans created for fun, what were they capable of when they were serious?